back at WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. I got the hat. I've got both the hats. I've got the Planet Fitness. I've got the Sporticulture Maryland Lava Lamp. Luke Jones, I'm trying to sort of change the mojo around here a little bit, so I'm mixing things up. I have pandemic hair. I was going to, feature that. But the Orioles are in first place, so I figure if there's ever a time to let your hair down during a pandemic, this would be it, right?
I was going to say, this is the first time you and I have had the opportunity to talk about real sports, real living games actually going on over the weekend. And, hey, they won 2 of 3, especially after what happened Friday night. Would not have thought that. So it was a fun weekend of baseball. Look, the realities of what's going on aren't going anywhere anytime soon. I think we saw that with what happened with the Marlins and how this week's going to play out with 4 games scheduled against the Marlins. But for one weekend at least, we had baseball, and the Orioles played a pretty solid brand of baseball, albeit not on Friday night to open the season, but nice series win against a Red Sox team that I think is pretty clearly in transition itself, although at a different level than where the Orioles are right now.
Well, all right, so let's jump into where we are on the baseball side. And we forget the blowout, forget the 2 wins, just where it is, watching this sort of, after 6 months of sitting at home, trying to process what's going on, whether they can finish it or not. And as I went to bed on Sunday night, the Orioles were in Miami, but the Marlins were in Philadelphia because they've got COVID. And, we've talked at length about this. We're not even on to the first road trip of the year here. Nobody's come here yet. And we've already got teams that are failing protocols, having problems keeping players healthy. And then once something happens, what then happens to the starting pitcher? And if the team is turning up dirty tests, why are they playing in Philadelphia on Sunday? I think they're going to be making this up as they go along, and we all are, right? We all are. But I'm not trying to move 40 human beings around the country to make nice television every night. That's what they're trying to do.
Sure, and it's challenging, and I've said to you all along, while I think it can be done, that doesn't mean it will be pulled off. It doesn't mean it can happen or that it will happen. I think the immediate question is not that they had some players test positive. I mean, in Miami, of all places, they played an exhibition game, a couple exhibition games in Atlanta earlier in the week, another area where there's been, I don't know if I'd call it a hot spot, whatever. Clearly, Georgia's had some more positive cases than other parts of the country.
They also have an idiot for a governor, but I'll just point that out because I watched his campaign ads last week. But yes.
But with that, my big question is, why would you not postpone the game on Sunday, especially with the thought of this isn't the old days where, okay, the Angels are coming into town for the only trip of the year into Philadelphia or something crazy like that. This is a case where these teams are going to play again. So if you have to postpone a game, even if you have to postpone a series, do it. And then you'll figure it out as you go along in a baseball context. We shouldn't.
They love to have certainty though, right? So when they cancel, if this Orioles Marlins thing doesn't happen, look, I guess it doesn't matter. They both suck. Neither one are going to make the playoffs. It's a little bit more dangerous when you add more playoff teams and all of this stuff that they're doing to make money. Let's just call it. They're doing this to make money. So this is all a money grab. And if they can keep the train on the tracks, and I've said all along this is going to be challenging, but where is the responsibility for them to not infest the Philadelphia Phillies, right? I keep going down to this being contagious. It really isn't about you. It's about everybody else, right? So why would the Orioles want to show up with the Marlins who are infested? Why do they want to play them on Monday night? I keep going back to the once one of these things happens, it's going to be uncontrollable, and they like things controlled, Luke. You know what I mean? They like to have certainty and know everything. There's not going to be any certainty. And it's easy for you and I to say on a Monday morning, well, if you got to cancel a series, just cancel it or whatever. They're not really thinking that way. I don't think they're thinking about flexibility. I've never known them to be very flexible people.
Well, and that's fair. And as I've said all along, I have questions about this as well. But at the same time, these guys all went into this knowing that they're probably going to be positive cases. And From that standpoint, that's why you are testing. That's why you do need to be vigilant. I know Brandon Hyde addressed this before and after Sunday's game when he was asked about what's going on in Miami and the implications there for the Orioles traveling down there to play the Marlins. But that's where a lot of the personal responsibility comes in. I mean, this happened Thursday night with Juan Soto testing positive for the Nationals. It was the Yankees' let me be clear about that. Not their responsibility in that it's no one else's, but from a personal standpoint, when there is a team that has a positive case and there's some uncertainty, one, you need to have testing that comes back in a timely manner. And two, that's where the social distancing does come in that, hey, your best friend in the league might be on the other team that you're playing that night, but hey, if we want to keep this going, we need to be careful here, especially if there's been a recent outbreak or a concern or hotspot with multiple players on the team testing positive. So, if it's 3 or 4, can you manage that? I have no idea, but I'd say you can manage it more than if half the players on a team break out, and then you are talking about canceling games and who knows what else. So I'd like to sit here and say I have the perfect answers for you, Ness, but we're in such uncharted territory from a baseball context, let alone talking the entire world.
Well, it's tested our humanity, right? About like whether we're going to interact with other people, how we're going to interact with other people, and whether it's going to be done safely or not. I mean, I went to the farmer's market on Sunday. Like, yeah, everybody's got a mask on. They're not wearing it right. They're not staying 6 feet away from each other. They're getting on top of each other. I'm still seeing people hugging, people who still want to elbow bump me. Dude, you don't need to elbow bump me. You don't need to come within 6 feet of me. You just don't. Like, literally, I'll blow you a kiss. But I've been around baseball players. I've been around athletes. I have used the safe sex thing, and I'll continue to use that. It is everyone needs to wear the condom everywhere, all the time, in every circumstance. And they need to be practicing that all the time in order to eradicate this. And I guess the humanity of it is that we haven't done a very good job. And somewhere along the line, someone's going to be sloppy. And the more you make it, my wife and I have managed to stay safe because there's 2 of us. We wear masks. We don't go out. We're not sloppy. You start putting together baseball players and young people and Republicans and Democrats and I believe this and I believe that and it's just one time and I don't believe in vaccinations. I mean, all of these beliefs that we're not all playing on the same team here, clearly, right? And I would never think that baseball and football are maybe basketball because they have a bubble. That's a different. They're doing it. They're doing it the scientific way. They're doing it the way it was supposed to be done. If you really want to pull it off, the rest of these people are just slapping it together. And it feels to me on Sunday night when I go to bed and my baseball team's on a plane to Miami to play tomorrow, and they're wondering if they're going to play, and the team in Miami says we can't leave Philadelphia, and we're going to leave guys behind to quarantine, and there's no protocol. And hey, Manfred, can you help me out with this? Where's the help on all? Well, this is unprecedented. It's uncharted. And let's see, are you a playoff team or are you not? If you're a playoff team, we got to get this in. If you're the Orioles or the Marlins, maybe not. I don't know where the protocol is going to be, and I can't believe they're going to play baseball for the next 3 days with a team that's had an infestation. And flying around in more airplanes and more hotels and more stadia. And I'm blown away by that the Orioles think they're going to play baseball this week. But that being said, it was a hell of a series over the weekend. They beat Boston. So good for us. We could talk about the baseball side of this, but before the first series is over, we have questions as to whether the second series is going to happen. Like, literally, that's how messed up this is.
Well, and I mean, again, it comes – and we've had the same conversation for 3 months. I mean, I don't know how many times we're going to have to rehash it until it gets shut down or until they push through. And
but you wonder where's the edge? Rudy Gobert was the edge in March because they didn't want anybody to die. Now we're just like, well, we got 150,000 dead. Let's roll the dice. Let's start things. Let's send the kids back to school. I mean, I think that the virus is just as dangerous. It's the talk around it and the normalcy of we're going to play baseball tonight that sort of makes it feel like, well, it's not that bad. It's not that big of a thing until somebody dies,
I mean, I guess. I don't know what you really want me to say at this point. if they're trying to
Well,
play.
do you think they're going to play baseball? I mean, I guess
What, as
on
in
a daily basis.
Monday night? I mean, I said all along, I think they can. Did I think that they were going to get through the whole season without having some positive tests? Of course not.
It's what they do once they have them. That will be the issue. Especially this Marlins thing is one of the first big challenges for them because it's not one guy who got it at the gas station and kept it away from everybody else. These guys are on top of each other every day now. They're playing together.
Well, and that's going to be the big key here. I mean, when they get testing results back on, at some point in the day, Monday, because it sounds like their plan as of late Sunday night was to arrive back in Miami, 5-6 hours before first pitch. If the cases or the players that have been isolated to this point, whether it's a positive test or whether it was a contact trace where they said, hey, they spent a lot of time with that player, if it's isolated to those 3 or 4 individuals and everyone else is clean and negative, then okay, I can see proceeding then with those individuals remaining in Philadelphia for the time being. And that's just, and that was part of the protocol that's been established. If it's 4 more guys, and now we're talking about a quarter of the roster, I guess technically it's 30-man roster right now, but let's say it's a quarter to a third of the roster, then yeah, you need to postpone this series. You probably need to postpone the series after that, and then you reevaluate with where the Marlins are at that point in time. Every team has a 60-player pool, but if you're approaching double digits or you're in something, some kind of crazy territory as far as number of positives, you can't play. Of course you can't play. And then you postpone the games and you try to figure it out at some point down the road.
Well, I wonder if you postpone or you forfeit. You know what I mean? Like,
I think it has to be a postponement for now. I think that's the way you have to do it for now.
Yeah, I would have, and I know it's a player association thing, but forfeiting probably should have been the penalty. If you get dirty and your team's dirty, you lose. You lose. You don't get to play. It should be a Willy Wonka thing. It's like, dude, you got 4 kids that go to the beach this week for vacation. The Berkshire Bears forfeit the game to the Indians. That's the way we played it back in '81 in Berkshire. But I don't know that they're going to have time to make these things up. And I do think, and the Marlins are the first story, and we've been talking about it for 6 months, and dare I listen to the epidemiologist and the scientist instead of the fat orange guy out golfing with Brett Favre over the weekend. How dare I do that? But this was sort of to be expected, right? So, like, the fact that 3, 4, 5 guys have come up dirty somewhere along the line. They had to know this was going to happen. Now, maybe not the first weekend in Philadelphia, but whatever the protocol is, shouldn't they, have said if this, then that? Because it didn't feel that way to me on Sunday night. It felt like they still have their pants down around their head. They don't know what they're doing.
Well, if those players who tested positive are going to isolate in Philadelphia for the next 2 weeks, or however it plays out.
You ever isolated in Philadelphia for 14 days, Luke?
No, I mean, isolating anywhere is not exactly fun. I think we all know that at this point. But if you have that, and if you test everyone else, and if they're okay, and if you go back and kind of look at your protocols, or if you need to do a deep cleanse of the Philadelphia clubhouse, or the visitors clubhouse, or where they were in Atlanta, then you do those things. Beyond that, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, again, I don't want to make it seem like I'm taking the opposing viewpoint of you. I'm somewhere in the middle with plenty of concern.
Oh, you think they're trying to play and you want them to play and you're happy they're playing and I'm happy they're playing, but at what price and at what benefit? And
they're all making money. I mean, the players want to play because
Fair enough.
The players that are making the vet minimum, or players that are in their first year of under team service time, they're trying to make some money, or they're trying to stick in the league. I mean,
did you really enjoy it? I mean, I'm just going to baseball. So tell me give me, because my views aren't like even negative as more than just realistic of like, whoa, this is different. I'll give you something really positive. You want something positive, even though he votes the wrong way? Ben McDonald was really, really good. Garceau's terrible. And Ben McDonald's really good. And Ben McDonald has passion for this. He's good at this. He is worth watching. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if they put him with the kid on the radio, whether it would be really good or not, or there'd be some new voice or some new Chuck. Look, Chuck's not coming back. John Miller's not coming back. Joe Angel's not. Like, radio's not coming back. And I own a radio station, Luke. So I would just say that if this is going to be something I do 3 or 4 hours a day, Ben McDonald might be one of the reasons that I gut it out. Like literally, and I don't know if he's going to stick around or whether he's going to do this the next 10 years or whether the Orioles are going to be, he might be doing it in Nashville 3 years from now. But Ben McDonald is good at this. So I'll say that. And Rio Ruiz has nice hair. And then I'll let you go baseball.
No, I agree about Ben McDonald. In fact, I hope they do keep him around long term because Jim Palmer is 74 years old. We don't know how much longer Jim's going to do this. I mean, Palmer has been the gold standard in terms of Baltimore voices for the last 10 to 15 years at the very least. Go back longer, and they're overlap there with John Miller in the last days of Chuck Thompson doing this.
Well, he's the only one that's ever been honest.
But
literally,
he's good. And as far as for me, it's not even necessarily that he'll be critical, and he will be when it's appropriate. But he has an enthusiasm and a knowledge for the game that just it's something that you can get behind. You get into the game, and you can tell he really enjoys it. But it's done in a natural way.
He was still boned up over the weekend. I mean, even on these young kids from a million miles away, when he's on, it's better. Even though the communication's not very good, it's better.
I agree. And what's funny for me is I grew up in an era when Brooks Robinson was doing TV at that point in time. And Ben it's not the same exact accent and drawl that Brooks has, but it's similar. And so it kind of so it's funny hearing Scott Garceau, who was part of the Channel 2 new Orioles broadcast back in the late 80s, early 90s. And Ben McDonald kind of reminds you of that broadcast team from way back when. But I think Ben's really good. It's disappointing not to have Palmer on the regular broadcast. There's no question about that. I totally understand it from just a safety standpoint. So he's not traveling around and he's
he checked in the little corner. I thought that was kind of good.
I mean, they're with Zoom. I mean, look at what you and I are doing right now. You and I have not seen each other in the flesh since March, and we're having a conversation right now where we can see each other, and people are seeing us right now on the internet. So it's not ideal, but it's better than nothing. So to have Palmer chime in, hopefully more than just opening day. Hopefully he's a semi-regular visitor for the telecast because, I mean, let's face it. It was a nice series win, but this isn't the kind of team that you're going to be living and dying with every single pitch. You're going to be watching it, but they're going to lose a lot. So the more that you can add some Jim Palmer, the more that you can add some prospect talk and bring in Mike Elias to talk about what's going on with some of the guys at the Bowie secondary camp and how Adley Rutschman's looking there and different things of that nature. It's just going to make the broadcast and the experience that much better. So I like Ben McDonald.
There's a Bowie camp, right? Explain that to me a little bit. Teach me about that.
So what they have right now, they have a 60-player pool total. And what that's supposed to be is all the players that are eligible to potentially play for the active roster, play for the Orioles this year. Of course, they're not going to use all 60 players in a 60-game schedule. So what they've been able to do, and lots of teams are handling it this way, is essentially you're handpicking your top prospects, the Adley Rutschmans, the DL Halls, guys that were never going to make their debut in Major League Baseball this year, whether it was a regular season or not. And then you have guys like Ryan Mountcastle, Keegan Aiken, Dean Kramer, guys that very conceivably will be in Baltimore at some point this year. So they have as many of those guys in Bowie as they can have, again, under the understanding of the 60 pool or 60 player limit. So they have 30 guys on the main roster right now. They have a 3-man taxi squad. And then the rest of the players in the pool are in Bowie, and they're playing sim games as best they can. Obviously, it's not ideal. Not having a minor league season from a baseball standpoint is devastating for this organization right now.
For the industry.
Those are right. Oh, sure. But especially for a rebuilding team that we knew long before COVID ever became a thing that 2020 was completely inconsequential at the major
all those
level.
Trips for you and me to Bowie and Aberdeen and all sure. Gone, right?
Sure. And you wonder what's going to happen with some of these minor league cities across the country where they've just been the fabric of why people love baseball for years and years. But all those players that are at Bowie right now, they're working out, they're staying sharp. Guys like Mountcastle will absolutely be in the majors at some point. In fact, with him, probably sooner than later. Probably won't be more than a couple weeks, I would assume. So they're staying fresh. They're working out. Guys like Hall and Rutschman are getting as much work as they can right now to try to replicate, try to simulate as much of a minor league season as they can.
Well, nobody's going to start a clock on any of these young players in this turn of a
Sure.
season, right?
Sure. I mean, especially for a team like the Orioles. I mean, that's, and I know some people, I've already had people ask me, why isn't Mountcastle on the opening day roster? It's because if you keep them down, and I don't quote me on this directly. I think it might only be 7 games, somewhere in that neighborhood. You can save a year of service time, because keep in mind, guys.
Why do fans not understand this far in? Like, I mean, if you're into the drama, how do you not understand service clock in the aftermath of Wieters and Machado and anything that's happened in the modern? If you follow baseball,
sure,
this is what they do. Lawyers run baseball. People don't run baseball.
Well, and I guess the one argument you could make, and look, I think Ryan Mountcastle is a really interesting player. I think he's got a chance to really hit. I mean, look what he did. He was International League MVP last year, but go look at his strikeout to walk ratio, plate discipline concerns. He's now trying to play left field after he started as a shortstop, moved to third base, then to first base. So clearly a guy who defensively they're trying to figure out a place other than just making him a DH, where he can have some value at the major league level. So this isn't a perfect prospect, but for that reason, that's where people say, well, why are you so worrying about the service time compared to a Matt Wieters back in the day? Machado, they brought him up from Double-A, so no one even thought Manny was going to be in the majors in 2012. So it's one thing to talk about the Chris Bryants of the world, where it's been well documented. Vlad Guerrero Jr., well-chronicled service time manipulation, trying to avoid Super 2 status. So, I don't know if Super 2 status is on their minds when it comes to Mountcastle, but some people would say this guy isn't so much of a can't-miss prospect that you need to worry about that. But with it being a 60-game season, as weird as it is, I'm fine with sending him to Bowie for a couple weeks, letting him work out in left field, let him take batting practice off pitchers and sim games, and then bring him up and see what he can do. In the meantime, you're getting another look at DJ Stewart. You're getting another look at Cedric Mullins. So it's not as though you have some 38-year-old has-been. You have a couple guys that I'm not incredibly high on, but still have some semblance of a chance to be bona fide major leaguers, whether it's a fourth outfielder or something like that. So I'm not as hot and bothered about that, but hey, Orioles fans who have been incredibly patient already, who will need to continue to be patient for the next couple of years at the very least with the way this thing is going. And now with the uncertainty of just the season in general and no minor leagues in 2020, I can understand some impatience of wanting to see Ryan Mountcastle, even though I can get why the Orioles are doing it.
Luke Jones is here. He is monitoring all things Orioles baseball when Masson and the bat, BAM allows him to watch the Orioles amidst others. And when the Orioles play and they're in Miami and they might play and they might not. They might have too many players with COVID and they might not. And we hope the Orioles stay safe. They certainly were safe and sound on the field. Let's talk about Alex Cobb a little bit here, Luke, and where it's at. I find it fascinating that he's 2 innings in. And Viviano's on Twitter dealing him already. It's hilarious, right? Like, oh my God, he's gotten 6 batters out. Let's trade him for something. I mean, that's. I laugh at all of this because if I don't laugh, I cry, and it's not a laughing matter, certainly not. But on the baseball side, this season is like something out of like a Bugs Bunny cartoon to me. You know what I mean? It's like a Roadrunner cartoon. It's just weird and stuff's going to pop up. But more than that, dealing off players and trying to get yourself set for next. You talk about Mountcastle and starting service clocks and money and all that. All these organizations are trying to figure out where they're going to be in 2022 at this point, literally, more than winning a World Series 12 weeks from now.
There's no question about it. But as far as the whole trade deadline, we're a little over a month away from the trade deadline. And that's what's weird about it. So as it relates to Alex Cobb, look, he quietly pitched pretty darn well in 2018 in the second half. Go back and look at his numbers post All-Star break. And keep in mind, the Orioles signed him at the very end of spring training. He didn't have a normal spring. He was all out of sorts. And he pitched very poorly that first half of 2018. Pitches well in second half, comes in 2019, gets hurt, was hurt in spring training, only made a few starts, and then he's out for the year. So he's really a forgotten guy. But The guy that we saw on Saturday afternoon at Fenway Park was the guy that Dan Duquette and Buck Showalter envisioned when they signed him 2.5 years
He's
ago.
like a real grown-up, isn't he? He's kind of like a bit of a Hall of Fame person. Or maybe dude, I'm not around these guys, and I'll never be around them again. Obviously, 15 years in, I don't even want I'm glad you have my press pass. If you get a second one, take your brother or your sister. I don't want to go over there, especially with no hot dogs. But Alex Cobb seems to me to be a dude that they outkick their coverage getting a human being like this. Now, whether his arm is falling off and was falling off and is falling off 2.5 years into this, okay, but it didn't look that way over the weekend. And in the modern era, right, like when you make this much money and you are what you are, you are what you are. But Alex Cobb might be like a really nice middle relief, like from a peace standpoint on a good team in this environment. Somebody may want Alex Cobb banging around their locker room 6 weeks from now, and maybe they'll give the Orioles some Dean Kramer. Or I don't know, but he seems to be dealable more so than Ubaldo Jimenez was, as an example.
Yeah, I still think it's going to be tough because he's owed $15 million next year. And when you just look at how the last couple of years have gone with him, the hip and the back last year, the really shaky, not so good 2018 numbers overall. I mean, this is a guy who had Tommy John surgery back with the Rays several years back. So there's a lot to really unpack with him from a medical standpoint.
Who the hell gave him $57 million? Can I ask you?
Well, I mean, it's not as though he was poorly regarded at that point in time, but I mean, there were certainly some questions, and there was a reason he was available in late March when they signed him. But I do think even if he shows that Saturday was no fluke and he's back to being the Tampa Bay version of Alex Cobb, is a month enough to really showcase him and for teams to say, in this environment with the pandemic, with the uncertainty, with the financial, I don't want to say hardship because these owners, it's not hardship, but different environment economically than it's been in most years. Our owner's going to be quick to sign off on taking on a $15 million commitment for next year when the pandemic could still be an issue for next season for all we know. So that's where I'm not nearly as sold on the idea of being able to deal Alex Cobb at least a month from now. Maybe the off season you can revisit that when you have a better handle on just the reality of where baseball is and the economics are. But it's good to see him pitch well. He commanded the fastball really well. I thought he was especially good against lefties with that split changeup. And it was very much a reminder of the kind of guy the Orioles thought they were getting, and he just hasn't been able to stay on the field. So good to see him pitch the way he did. And for that matter, I thought Wade LeBlanc, final line notwithstanding, because a couple inherited runners scored, but thought he gave them a nice chance to win and pitched into the 6th inning on Sunday. So, they look, this rotation is not going to be good. I want to be very clear about that. It's still going to be bad. But if you have some of these 30-something guys that don't provide any intrigue from an upside standpoint, if they can be functional and give you some outings where you're not using 8 relievers to get through one game like they were too often last year, it makes what they did on Saturday and Sunday a little more plausible. It makes it seem like something they can do a little more frequently. This is still going to be a bad team. I want to be clear about that. But when you have a couple veteran guys in your rotation, it does make winning seem a little more conceivable some of the time maybe, whereas some of the stretches they've had the last couple of years, you would wonder if they're going to ever win a game again. But
hey, Meatloaf said 2 out of 3 ain't bad, right? So let's see,
It was fun. And I'll say this much, and I mentioned this briefly a little bit earlier in our conversation. I think the Red Sox, that's a team that's in trouble right now. They clearly, I mean, Betts is gone, David Price is gone, no Chris Sale, Eduardo Rodriguez dealing with some fallout from testing positive. That
it's only going to be bad for 60 days, dude. I mean, by October 1st, they'll be pissed at whoever's quarterback in the Patriots by then, right? Like I don't think anybody, the Red Sox, I had Shaughnessy and Bob Ryan go find it out in the BuyAToyota.com audio vault. I mean, they threw the towel in for the first time in our life, and in our adulthood at least, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a team. I mean, and to be very clear, they're still going to be better than the Orioles. I'm not looking at this series and saying, oh, the Orioles might finish in 4th and the Red Sox. No, I mean, I mean, could the Red Sox finish behind the Blue Jays? Probably not now, considering what Toronto is going to be going through from a travel and inconvenience standpoint.
They're going to go through some things.
So, yeah, I mean, playing in Buffalo and being the home team in road cities at times, it's going to be strange. But this is clearly not a Red Sox team that we're accustomed to seeing. And nice to see the Orioles take advantage of that. Not give the Orioles credit. I mean, Friday night was embarrassing. I mean, that was as bad as it gets for an opener. And immediately everyone's talking about 1988 and this Oriole team might not win 10 games. And they put some of that talk to bed, at least with a couple nice wins over the weekend. And we'll see what happens now, whether they play over the next few days or how that gets, how that all develops. But some nice things to see over the weekend on the pitching side. And even some guys like Anthony Santander and Rio Ruiz swinging the bat well. And Jose Iglesias, number 3 hitter, go figure, with, I think, a career 687 OPS.
Peter King was texting me on Sunday and said he wanted to discuss the pursuits of Jose Iglesias, the resurrection of the
I mean, not a number 3 hitter by any stretch of the imagination, but he swung the bat well. He swung the bat well over summer camp, too. As much as I didn't like the VR salary dump, I do think Iglesias was a solid signing and a nice piece for them with the lack of middle infield options that they have in the organization at the higher levels right now.
If you're not going to try, let's not try with him. Luke Jones is here. He is Baltimore. Luke, he's out on Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and at the ballpark, but not really at the ballpark, but sometimes at the ballpark. And if the Orioles at the ballpark, he'll be at the ballpark this week. The Ravens, they might play too. We'll get to all of that. Big appreciation to our friends at Liberty Pure Solutions for coming out and providing a solution for my hot water heater 2 weeks ago. We had sort of corrosion, crazy stuff going on. Been like 15 years since we had a hot water heater. Doug and his crew came out, socially distanced, safe, took care of things about 10 feet from where I do my show. I'm very appreciative. Liberty Pure, make sure you find them. And I'm going to have some water on the set. I'll be drinking it. We'll be telling some more stories along with Matt Stover about what they do. I've got the Maryland Sporticulture lava lamp up because I don't know, I just felt like a yellow glow. The new one's going to be black when the new Ravens one comes. I got yellow and purple. Those are my 2 colors here. So I'm going to go with yellow for now and do the Maryland thing for Bruce Posner and everyone else. Planet Fitness, open and socially distanced and safe. Get on in there. They've been our partners for a long, long time. And we're going to be telling you about more partnerships coming up here as we expand Baltimore Positive. Some great new things ahead. Pizza John's will be a part of that. Our friends at Taharka. And, of course, Chicken Palooza. I had Western fries last week. I'm very proud of that. I picked up 2 2-piece boxes for $5 and contributed. You can find right on the side of the box here if I pick it up. 10 cents for every Chicken Palooza box sold. Benefits Johns Hopkins and the Children's Center. Important stuff. Chicken Palooza. Here be chicken. It's a pirate theme. The back says so. I am Nestor. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, anywhere you are. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and Baltimore Positive.